As an event planner, you've got a lot on your plate. That's why Social Hour makes running virtual and hybrid events seamless and fully customizable with just a few clicks. Get your time back to focus on content, sponsors, and promotion. Book a demo at socialhour.com/GatherGeeks by December 31st for 20% off.
Are you a
10, 9, 8,
okay, so we're gonna probably add
Welcome to GatherGeeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. Here's your host, BizBash chairman and founder, David Adler.
Today we're talking with event designer and lifestyle guru David Tutera. You may have seen him on television because he has hosted over 325 plus episodes of his own shows, including The Party Planner, Get Married, My Fair Wedding, Celebrations, and My Big Live Wedding. His event business clients cover the gamut from Elton John, Prince Charles, Jennifer Lopez, to Lil' Kim, Dennis Rodman, and Ice-T, as well as numerous nonprofits and corporate clients. Today, he says that COVID has changed everything and that we have been stuck in our ways. He doesn't have a crystal ball, but he does say that things won't really settle down in our industry for a few more years. And we have to elevate experiences that we allow people to actually breathe. So take a listen. What was your first job and what did you learn from it, David?
My first job, I think most people may not realize that I had no idea what I was doing. In fact, many people in the industry step into it that way. But my very first job before the world of events, I was a room service waiter for the night shift at a hotel in Westchester County. Interesting because I got a chance to see a lot of odd things and a lot of interesting things. And I was really awkward and I sliced my finger the first day at work, dropping all the glasses off the trays. Not a good experience, but it was my first job.
And what did you learn from it?
I learned that because it's a service industry, as being a waiter and being a waiter in the evening, that I had to listen really carefully. A lot of things were being thrown around. The staff in the evening was limited, so you weren't getting as much information as you needed to get. How hard is it to take a tray to a room? There's a lot of things that need to go on the tray and a lot of details that people don't want. So I had to pay attention. I learned it was important that the act of listening was really the most important thing I needed to do.
And for that experience, how did you get into the event business? What was your path?
I'll give you the short version because it could be very long. So here I am now at 19, graduated high school, enrolled at Fordham University at Lincoln Center. My plan was to be an attorney. So I got in and I was there for about a year and a half at Fordham University doing well. Then just all of a sudden woke up one day and realized, I don't think this is my path. I don't think this is my calling. And I went back home. I was living at home still in Portchester, New York, which is in Westchester County. And I said to my parents, I don't think you're spending the money on me that's needed. I think that I've made a mistake. So I'm going to just take a break. Well, a break became, I don't know, decades. I never went back to Fordham University or any higher education of that. And I answered an ad for a job. And it was literally a job to deliver singing telegrams. And I took the job with this little company in Scarsdale, New York. And for about 6 months, I was delivering singing telegrams and making like $100 a gig. So that was a lot of money for that. And she asked me if I would buy her business and couldn't afford it and borrowed the money from my grandfather who owned a very well-known flower shop. And next thing I knew, I had a little store in Larchmont, New York, because I thought that why not open up a tea store in an affluential area? And a woman came in my store and she said, I like what you did in your window. It's really cool. I want to hire you to do my son's bar mitzvah. So I just thought, okay, I did not even know what a bar mitzvah was. I came from a Roman Catholic family in an Italian environment, and I had to call someone and ask someone, what the hell's a bar mitzvah? And that was my first gig in the entree into doing special events.
And take us into that. What did you learn from that? How did you approach it? What did you take from that that you still use today?
I asked a lot of questions. When you don't know something, you ask questions. It doesn't mean the answers you get are actually the answers you want, but you have to ask to learn. And I called my very good friend, Judy, who was Jewish in school. And I think she might've been the only Jewish person in that school. And I asked, I need you to walk me through what a bar mitzvah is. I don't even understand what the culture is. I don't understand what they do. And she gave me sort of the basics. And then when I went back to Harriet, the mother of Seth, which was the son getting bar mitzvahed, I had enough information to know, okay, I have the questions I need to ask. Like, I know they want specific things in the traditional aspect. I know that they ask for ceiling treatments. Why I never knew why they wanted treatments of ceiling fabric on the middle of the dance floor, but I knew they liked that because I asked Judy what it was that they were looking for. So with that little bit of knowledge and that very complicated ask to do this party, I realized I actually liked creating something and bringing people together and making it celebratory. That was my launch pad, legitimately my launch pad into an industry or into a career that I had absolutely no idea even existed. People were paying other people money to create parties. Why would I not do that?
What did you get paid to do that job?
I got paid. So let me tell you how I got paid for this. I got paid $1,500, and that included my planning. Mind you, I had no idea what I was doing. And it included the decor, which was for 200 guests at the event. So at the end of the day, I probably spent more than I received to showcase that I was actually trying to do something that I might be able to do. So I made no money, which is my whole rule of thumb not to do, right? So I started with the rule of thumb of what not to do in my career. And now I teach today by saying you have to show the value of what you were.
So how did you go from that one event to creating a real business from it? What was it that inspired you to actually take the leap into, okay, this is what I want to do?
I still think at that time I didn't know what I wanted to do, but what I did realize was that I needed to showcase personality. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the education. I didn't have the expertise or the background to understand how to get bigger jobs that I know people in New York City were getting. But what I did know is I had a personality that allowed me to infuse myself into a culture. And that culture being the Jewish religion, I started doing this plethora, like this mass amount of bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs. I did brisses, I did weddings, and I was in this culture of Westchester County where they all started migrating towards me. And I realized, okay, I have an opportunity here. And I always take an opportunity such as this one, and I always use the opportunity to expand, increase the money a little bit, ask more questions, learn, because now my teachers are my clients. So, and that's great if you think about it. And I began to expand this business in just the walls of Westchester County. And then it leaped. That one big leap leaped into New York City. And someone from New York City asked me to do a wedding at the Pierre Hotel, which was to me like a venue that why would I walk into the Pierre Hotel? I don't have the worthiness of that. And that entered me in. This is probably maybe 6-7 years far into it. That was the door that opened me up into the world of socialites. And that was the launch pad, legitimately.
And when you say socialite, what is a socialite to you in that?
The Brugasters, the Tishes, the Cisneros, the families that are multi-billionaires. I always call them my billionaire babes.
And what did you do? You know how every time I give a speech in this industry, it all comes down to my Angelou, and that people don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. In Westchester and in your sort of building up what you do, what is that secret that makes them feel something from what you do? You said your personality is important, but you're translating your personality into your essence at that event in some way, even though it's for them. Yeah, it's secret sauce.
I think the secret sauce is that you always lead with positivity. I always am a yes person. I always do say no when I think something is impossible based on logistics or money. But I always listen and make sure that this is never about me. It's always about either the recipient, the honoree, or the person that's hosting the party. It's very easy. I have seen over the course of my career where people in our business tend to make it about them. It's all about them for that matter. And we're not being hired to be us. We're hired to showcase what they want. Right. So early on, I always realized that I had to make those people feel important, every person important, from the child to the adult to the bride to whomever it was. And if they feel that from you, you have this somewhat wider open door to begin to charge more and build more and become more successful.
So what is that technique? There's someone listening to here, David Tutera now, you're like the icon of icons. I'm so proud of you as like somebody that I've known for a long time that is giving our industry respect. What is the tips that you would give to that person that's you back when they're starting? That, how do you, it's about your personality. I'm trying to dig into not the superficial, but the, who David Tutera is. If we're going to do a eulogy about you, what would they say? I just was today listening to Colin Powell's funeral, and they talk about him, his resume versus his character.
Yeah. I had a great opportunity. I actually worked with him and his wife, and remarkable two human beings. I think the essence of how I lead my life is I try to keep the environment around me very simple, and I try not to create drama ever. And I always typically, with my clients and with our teams, really push that down to the bottom of the ground. It's really important. And I write about this in every keynote that I write, any book that I've ever written. If you lead with kindness and you lead with grace, you lead with control. And that is a really important and powerful perspective for myself, for my children, for my husband, because then people actually see you much differently. And it has always worked for me because it keeps it very easy and simple. When you make someone smile, when you make someone proud, it gives you the ability to give them more information and allow yourself to do a better job for your clients. So I think clients that we work for now are always looking for, what's the big thing you're going to do? I said, wait a minute. Well, wait. Tell me a little bit more about you. Like, you have to get connected to the person as a human being before you can go and say, this is going to cost you $500,000. For what? You may not need to spend that money, or you may need to spend more, but my relationships with human beings is probably the most I value. I learned so much from people, from sometimes just watching, not just listening.
And what are like when you first meet somebody, you've got to be a curious person in order to do this job.
Oh, I'm so curious.
So what is that? Take us through some of these initial get to know you moments that before you even get into events. Like, I'm a big believer. I worked for Hillary Clinton for a while. We believe in soft power. That soft power is knowing the details, knowing everything about a person, knowing how they take their coffee, knowing which antiques, which you should show up at the State Department and move things around. You have I'm trying to figure out how you teach that.
I don't know if it's a teachable item. I think you're either wired that way or you may not be wired that way. But I do try to express to everyone in any industry that it's all about, like, we're back to that, we're listening and being very aware of the surroundings that you're in. So for me, here's this kid, I'll call myself a kid back. Even I think of myself that way now, is that
I still think of you as a kid.
I'm 55-year-old kid. So I think of myself where I was at when I was like maybe in my younger teens. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't feeling comfortable in my space. I always felt like the underdog. And I like to perceive myself that way when I'm stepping into an experience and trying to self-teach myself what's going on around me, like going into a billionaire's apartment in New York City and try to understand, why are you hiring me? And how am I going to make this work? And frightened to death, quite frankly. And then you have to showcase this abundance of confidence. Sometimes confidence just doesn't show up. You have to actually sometimes pretend it's there. But confidence gives you that ability with a client who's wanting to spend a lot of money and hire you, showcasing that you might be the right person to bring on for this project. If you sit back and you're meek and you're asking questions that don't make sense, or you're doing the I don't know moment, you're not going to get the job. So leading with confidence and leading with strength and leading with curiosity, I think is like a really great combination. It's a really interesting formula because the potential client really is starting to pay attention to you, because most clients, all they care about is themselves. And they don't typically care about the person they're hiring, because we're like a service industry. So I try to bridge that gap and thread the two of us together. And then they begin to trust you, and I begin to trust them. And then there's a great relationship.
It's interesting in our business. It's you're a service provider, but it's a lifetime value of that customer. I would assume customers that you've taken through every major moment of their lives.
It's funny you just brought that up. I'm doing a wedding for a client. My client Sharon, I have done all four of her children's bar bat mitzvahs and all four of her, now it will be all four. This is her last daughter getting married. So I've had the opportunity to work for them on all of their big moments. And I had another client who I've done all of her bar mitzvahs and weddings, and now she has a granddaughter. So it's really wonderful to be part of these relationships with these families. It doesn't always happen, but
Right.
when it does, it's very special.
Well, it also spills over to corporate too, because you become their taste agent.
Yes.
I would assume that you're like the check to make sure, am I doing this okay?
It's true. I get a lot of that. It's like, is this a good idea or is this a bad idea? And tell me the idea. Then they get nervous and then I tell them the truth. Sometimes
So,
truth hurts.
and so when the truth hurts, like what are the kind of things that you will call someone on? Like,
I'm not I'll tell you it's a really bad idea, but I'm really good at telling someone when I think it's not possible or it can't work. It could be a logistical issue. It could be a financial decision. And I always say there might be a better way to do something that you're looking for.
you're
It's my way of saying no without saying no. But I never get, it's funny. My dad taught me something in life at a very early age. He says, you never say no to anyone. You never say no to any conversation if somebody asks you something, because no is a stop. It's a point of no return. If you say yes to something you can't do, you still have a door that's wide open. So I always say yes. Sometimes it gets me in trouble for taking on projects, but yes sets you up for success. No shuts you down.
You are 100% correct. I had a boss at Primedia, actually. He said, whenever someone comes in with an idea, that you can always say no later.
Yeah.
But because you don't want to start any sort of issues. And 90% of the time, when you ask someone, oh, that's a great idea, show me more about it, they never follow through. So you're having a war with someone doesn't even need to have that. So there's two ways of looking at it too. That the greatest lesson I have is to say yes to everything and then say, show me more. And 90% of the people don't follow up on what they say they're going to do.
Exactly.
You your type of personality is you probably are over hyper following up on everything you say you can do.
I do. We are working on a project right now. It's fascinating. We were awarded this project. It is the largest project of my entire career in this industry. And it is so complex. It is beyond overwhelming, but it is an honor to be able to be doing this project. And we hired so many people that on this team that I look to my husband and I go, how did this happen? And we've been married for 8 years and he's not been in the business as long as I am, clearly. But he turned to me and he said, you got hired because they wanted you. And I didn't think that. I just assumed I was one of many, right? So I spent 6 months of trying to do the RFPs and create the story of why we were the company to be hired. And I just found out yesterday, after 2 months now being hired in, I always had the job.
Oh.
They just were going through the process of RFPs. And I turned to John and I said, you were right. You're right. They actually wanted me. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty remarkable project we're working on.
Your job isn't easy, helping people make real connections through virtual events. Social Hour makes it easier with customizable spaces that help your attendees engage and connect. Book a demo at socialhour.com/GatherGeeks by December 31st for 20% off your next event.
If we move up to today a little bit, and you said you just got this big job, what do you think is changing in the perception of people that do events seem to have this event thinking that permeates society in general? We're in this flexible world right now. We went through COVID. What is it about what we do in our industry and what you do specifically that is in touch with what's happening today?
I've written about this quite often, and I have said to our industry and those that aren't, that we hold a much different role of responsibility. So here we have come out of something that is so bad and so terrible for so many of us, that we now are not just creating celebrations, or we're not just creating moments that celebrate a history of time. We are here to elevate the emotion and the mindfulness of people. And it takes on a whole nother role for us. So we already have so many hats that we wear. But I feel that it's an honor, actually, that we are allowed to now say, you've been somewhere, you've had a rough 2 years, your guests or your hosts, and you are now bringing them all together, however that all together looks like. And now you have to elevate the experience, the emotion, not the flowers, not the band, not the things and all the pieces that we put logistics together. We have to allow ourselves to know that we have to create this moment that people leave feeling not joy, but feeling more that they can breathe. And that is very big right now.
How do you do that?
You do it through emotion.
Yeah.
You do it through emotion. We do that when we do our evening events for the David Tutera Experience, our conference. We lead every evening as if it's a movie. It has an emotional aspect to it. You're learning while you're sitting there. And then you're seeing these surprise epic moments that visually happen. And then you have these beautiful performances by people that are meant to make you cry. I'm all about, if I make you cry, there's a reason why you're crying. You might be sad, you might be thrilled, you might be scared, but you're allowing yourself to be present. And doing the course of these David Tutera experiences for now 7 years, I've realized that I've shifted that into how I execute my clients' work.
Do you have any examples of things that really worked in this realm? Like some things that the people did at some of your David Tutera experiences, or just with your clients?
We did this past experience. We had the multiple ones we've done, but the one most recent, in my keynote speech on stage, I was talking about the joys of the journey and talking about the things that happen in our lives. And I was being very relevant to where we are in our society and both in our world of back end of COVID, wherever we want to call it. And I wanted to show how moments in time make lives change. And I used an example from America's Got Talent. So I brought on the golden buzzard moment that we watch as a family. And Mandy Harvey, she's an amazing singer. She's deaf. She lost her hearing at a young age. She stepped on that stage. She sang Simon Cowell, Hit the Golden Buzzard. And the joy you as a viewer experienced and the brilliance that you saw her father and her experience was amazing. So what I did was I told that story on the stage and I showed that clip. Fast forward, I embedded that moment into their psyche while they were sitting as attendees. And 2 nights later, one of our events, down comes the steps, Mandy Harvey, onto the stage with the grand piano and sign language. It does sign language and then begins to sing. And the attendees, as soon as they saw her eye to eye locking from that steps coming down, they were all present because they knew the story. And now they have the honor of being in that environment, experiencing it. It's how you create that storytelling. Right? I try to explain that events are not just about timelines and logistics. If you're telling a story, like when I write my books, when you're writing a story, there's an arc, there's a beginning, a middle, and end, and there's also some bumps throughout all of it. And I like to do that now with how I execute events. It really changes people's perspective and it really allows guests, like I said earlier, to feel like they could just fully be present and breathe.
Is there David Tutera, for lack of a better word, 2.0, COVID that have attention spans have changed? We don't want to go out necessarily as much unless we really want to go out. What has changed in the world of events that you've seen in terms of how people want to receive these experiences?
I think everything has changed. I think it has been thrown up in the air and it's still up in the air. And I still think people are trying to grab pieces. I have said from the very beginning of this, we're not going to see anything land until 2023, 24. Everyone's like, it's not possible. I'm like, listen, I think maybe we needed this. I'm not saying COVID. I'm saying I think our industry needed to have everything thrown up because everyone was just too perfect in the way they wanted to work. So for me, I could speak for myself. It has forced me to see a different version of how I want events to be and a different way I want to work with clients and a much different way to work with my team. And the reason why I've done that is because the one gift I was received was time. So all that time we had with no clients, no interaction made me think, what should I do differently? How can I make this better? We're too busy in this industry trying to catch up that we don't take the time to figure out why we have to catch up and what we're doing wrong to give us less time. So we do things so much streamlined more. I think Zoom has been the best technology for us to be able to get things done quicker. I could see you instead of having conversation. I could have this conversation and avoid having to send you an email if I don't want to. So we now have a little bit more human interaction via virtual. I don't want to live in a virtual world where we're doing virtual events. That's not what I'm signed up for. But this aspect I love.
Is planning effective, brainstorming and things like that via this method, or?
It is. I actually now, almost, I don't want to say demand, but ask for potential clients. I don't need to jump in a car and go to your home or fly across the country or across the globe to take a meeting with you. I want to see your eyes and I want to see what you're telling me, because sometimes that you can hear it in someone's voice in a phone call if it's not possibly going the perfect way you want it to go. But when you're in a virtual call, you can actually really connect, really legitimately. Listen, David, if you're looking off to the left or the right, and it seems to me you're not paying attention to me, that means you're not interested in this conversation.
No, it makes sense. How have you changed how you work with your team now, your teams of people? You're virtual pretty much now, or
We are virtual. With this new project we're hiring almost 50 people to come onto the project. We're about,
is that project? I know you can't talk about it too much, but is it in a different realm than you're normally used to, or is it in corporate? Is it social?
it's interesting. It is not a different realm because it's corporate and we're not a corporate company. I think they hired us because of that very reason. We're not a corporate bit company. So we're coming in with an emotional background. It's an emotional event. It's a very big deal for the country, but bringing on this team and executing it as a corporate event with an emotional perspective, I think is what legitimately got me this gig. And being able to work with all my team virtually, I was up at 7 o'clock this morning. We got on a Zoom call. There was about 10 of us to specifically talk about one component of one of the events. And we've got 10 people in boxes and we're all communicating and we're all having a great conversation. And we're all in our own homes. And I'm not saying I want to be stuck at home. I have a great office in my house, but it works. It actually works, and it slims down the amount of energy and time that you have to put in if you would have done it otherwise.
You said that the whole ball game has changed. What is in the trash heap that you've seen? I know we're in an experimental phase right now. I know, like, for a while we always kidded about the mashed potato bar has seen better days from 100 years ago. But what would you recommend that doesn't work anymore?
I think it's
type of part of an event.
I think for one of the first things I've seen just living life over the past year and a half, 2 years, is that being more safer with the way we execute our food. I think we were very loose with that. And I say that it's a very big loose with that. I think we have to be more aware of how we protect the people that are around us. I think we have to be more aware of safety issues. I'm not talking COVID. I'm talking like in general. I think the industry is very sort of loosey-goosey on when those parameters need to be brought in and tight. Safety has to be one of the top of our priorities. It's always been like the last thing that we've thought of as event producers, but now we lead with safety first. And we're doing an event in Washington, D.C. in 3 weeks. This is my 20th consecutive year doing this event. It's the Prevent Cancer Foundation.
I live in DC now.
You should join us.
Oh, and I'll cover it.
It's December 1st. It's a phenomenal gig. Every year we have a different ambassador that hosts the evening. And our role this year with the board, I'm on the board also, is that it was all about the safety. And there was a lot of arguments because there's always two sides to the equation, but we were putting in a mobile unit, an actual mobile testing unit off property. So if you are not vaccinated and you can't prove that you're vaccinated, we'll escort you to the mobile unit to get your immediate rapid test so you can come into the 1,200 person gala and wear a mask or choose not to wear a mask based upon just that decision. What that did, which I'm stunned, by the way, we typically have 800 guests. We have almost 1,300 people coming this year.
Wow.
Knowing that we position safety first in place of everything else.
Where are you on sustainability now? We just had the climate conference. There's a lot of people really are starting to take it seriously, and our industry is probably one of the worst offenders.
We are.
In terms of dealing with that. Or what are you doing in that realm?
It's about 6 months, 8 months ago, I was having a conversation about how do we actually, I'm not going to fix it, but how do we lessen it? Paper flowers, not paper tissue, paper flowers, but we started to produce flowers that look phenomenal, that are usable multiple times, that look brilliant, that don't cause an issue with the sustainability of our world. We look to find ways that food winds up being used the proper way. The overabundance of food isn't being executed just because the caterer thinks more food is more and looks better. Those conversations have to happen with our vendors. The removal of the trash, the removal of after an event. Most people don't know what an event looks like when it's over because they're long and gone, but it's not handled the right way. And I think we need to take the responsibility to make sure the proper placement of trash and equipment needs to be put in the right places.
And does that, in terms of transportation and all that, we haven't solved those problems yet. All the carbon offsets that we now have to learn about, and how we're like really in a terrible time for this.
We're doing that with this event. We've got 50,000 people that have to arrive. So 50,000 people, how do they arrive? 50,000 people, let's assume that's 25,000 cars. Let's just assume that the conversation with the CEO was just pretty much the same. So the conversation we're having right now is, can we transport them in a different vehicle that's a larger mass amount of people? The carpooling, let's carpool the guests into a destination to lessen that footprint. And that's the decision that they chose to make. And I'm thrilled by it because most companies will just want to get people in as quick as they could and as quick out as we can. But we're going to designate areas. We're not going to shuttle because then that adds more to the footprint. So we're actually working with them on that.
So when you have your David Tutera experiences, are people talking about these issues, or is it sort of planning the way it used to be? I'm assuming the answer is no.
No, the answer is no.
Teaching about how you teach people, and the people that do come who want to learn, how different is their perspective today that you may not have expected?
It's pretty phenomenal. So the answer to the first part of the question, the education that is on the stage is carefully curated by myself, and I don't pick people that are just in the industry. I pick people that are teaching digital strategy, who are teaching them, how to live a life with more confidence and curiosity. We've got presidents of networks. We've got presidents of corporations. We've got people that are inspirational speakers. And then we have those that are in the business that are coming to talk about how they run their event industry, their event company. The mashup of that is really important because then it allows your attendees to not be so embedded in what they do for a living, but to be more understandable about how to not just live a better life, but how to be a better person, but also then be able to be a better boss and do a better job at what we do. Because we get very tired as this industry's beat down by so much work and clients with big expectations. And today, I think now more than before, we've got so much chaos and confusion that no one's quite sure what to do and how to do it. And I don't think there's a clarity on who's teaching that. I think right now it's all about you, me, someone else, trying to figure out what works for them. I don't think there's a master plan for all of us.
How do you feel about, it was so excited that you blew up in the media, not blew up in a bad way, blew up in a good way. And that all of a sudden you become like a superstar. How has that changed your perspective? And I know that when you do some of these weddings for these people, you watch the delight in their eyes and things like that. How have you changed from having this newfound fame? Event organizers like to be behind the scenes, and now all of a sudden you're in front of the scene. How has your life changed, and how has it evolved? I would assume you've gone through ups and downs of it too.
Yeah, I think when I first stepped into the world of television, when it just blew up, literally one television show after a next, and then I always, despise this word. When someone refers to me as a celebrity, I say, please, I'm not. I'm actually just someone that has a talent. And I try to remind myself how to be more humble. It's very easy to be put on camera and to have a very successful series of many shows and do the things that I've done and lose track of who you are. I think it's done the reverse. I think it's actually made me much more humble and much more aware. A lot of what I teach and I speak about and write about is just about, again, I think we talked about it earlier, was the simple thing of making someone smile, just understanding that the person next to you seems to be perfectly fine, might be the person that needs that smile or just some advice. So I think through television, through the success of my career on all the different levels of work, that I have stepped down, not in who I am and what I'm doing for the future, but I've stepped down to be more present with everyone. And that didn't happen yesterday. That happened over a period of probably 2 decades. Because being I'll put in air quotes, a celebrity, I'm grateful that I realized that isn't what I wanted to be. I'm more of a teacher, more of someone that wants to make people happy, but I certainly don't want to be put on a platform as that celebrity.
How do you, as someone that people look up to, though, you have people are asking you what you think about things and advice and how to do things properly, and you're supposed to know that. But I assume that nobody really knows. Like I've been working for the State Department, and we deal with protocol and all that. I don't necessarily know that, how to do all that, but you're expected to. People think that you do. How do you give advice without sounding arrogant, in a sense?
It's hard. It's
The way to do it.
Yeah, you never want to shame someone for saying they're doing something wrong, and you always want to hope you're giving them the right direction. We built that over COVID. We built the David Tutera mentorship program. And the mentorship program is a destination, a year commitment to us, to me, where I walk them through every single thing that you may be doing inaccurately or a possible new direction with doing, show me your website. We do website reviews. Oh my gosh, that website is not going to get the attention. You've got 8 seconds, guys, when someone goes onto your website. If you lose them, you're done in 8 seconds. You need to make sure that you're charging the value of what you are worth. Our industry, I talk about this all the time. This industry, for some reason, unless you're at the echelon of the career that you're in, and there's very little of those, are not charging the worth of the value of what they're worth. And I don't understand. I think because since I've started now 30 plus years, it has grown. The industry, there's so many people in every category that everyone has to charge less to get the job. Then you're not really, what are you doing? You're actually diluting our industry. We all need to elevate
to the bottom.
Yeah. And I work so hard to get people to remind themselves, you cannot charge this fee if you add up the hours and understand the value of your time. You're making sense on the hour.
Yeah. But so in terms of David Tutera mentoring, what is that program like? What does that mean?
So the David Tutera mentorship program is a 12-month program. And in that program, we do 2 live Zoom calls a month. One of them is specific topic related on many things that we've talked about today together, just in much longer length. And it's all recorded. It goes into a portal. Everyone can watch the recordings as many times as they want. We do a second live 1-hour session, which is only open forum Q&A. There then is the media training. I give media training as well, giving them the opportunity how to do an interview, how to do a radio interview, TV interview, website review, I had said. And then we also bring them on as potential mentees that work on projects of ours to see if they actually can learn on the ground in an experience and really guide them through the process. And then there's an Ask David section where they can email me at any time and ask the question regarding their business, and I respond right away.
And these are for business owners, entrepreneurs?
These are for entrepreneurs and business owners only in the industry of events.
Only in the business. So also, let's move a little bit to the future. We know things are changing. We know nothing is going to be really what it should be till 22, 23, 24. What is your feeling of what the future of the industry will be once it does settle down? I know that you have no crystal ball necessarily, but you must have some hopes and wishes.
I hope and wish that we as a global industry do really all the things, David, that we've been talking about. And I know it's an industry that moves rapidly and fast and sometimes doesn't pay attention to what is happening around them. I want us to remind and remember that what we've been through over the course of all round up 2 years, and understand that's moment of time that slowed us down should be a gift that we can now use, and remember that we have to stop and make sure that we're doing the things the right way, not throwing things against the wall to see if it sticks, not just throwing an idea out there because you want to get the job. Be prepared, be ready, be present, be an expert, and be professional. I've seen such a lack of professionalism across the industry that it actually sometimes alarms me. And it saddens me because I love this industry and I'm proud of it. But when I see that come into the equation, it hurts my heart, because we have to be very prepared and very ready for whatever comes our way. And now is the time to elevate our industry for our future and for those that are going to wind up walking into it and we're going to leave them with chaos. That's not our job right now. We have to clean up the chaos.
That makes sense. Although I do think that the industry is, when you say industry, everybody's confused about what is our industry. And I view it from a holistic point of view, from the trade show side to the festival side, to the concert side, to the political campaigning side, to the social side. And I believe, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, that we're going to be, because of COVID, we're about to move into the greatest entrepreneurial golden age of events.
I agree.
Because you're going to have all these professionals who are working for big companies that say, oh, I can do it better on my own. I can create a trade show that is much more targeted. I can create intimacy with a brand to make their events better. I believe that social events and weddings are all about serendipity impact, that people don't realize that it's not about the bride and groom, but the people that are sitting at the tables connect and do things that change their entire lives. So I would assume we're in agreement.
I'm 1,000% in agreement with you. I think that boom is going to do two things. It's going to blow up and take people into the sky in our industry. And then there's going to be a lot of shattered pieces left behind.
Yeah.
And also, get there.
The one other thing I found through COVID is that the C-suite people on the corporate side found that the people that were the closest to the customers and to the employees were the people in the event department. So they're now being called upon to be the de facto cultural officers in their companies. And in a sense that we're cultural officers, and we're setting the pace for whatever niche or group that we're in. Even if it's just a wedding, you're a cultural officer for this ecosystem that you just created out of nothing.
Yeah.
So I think that you're an expert at being that. I call event organizers the mayors of their niches. In a sense, because you control everything. You control the whole thing.
It's interesting because this project we're working on, part of the project is not just the 100th anniversary, but it's also how do we get 50,000 people back in the office? Because they're all hybrid, and there's not one office. There's 12 campuses across the country and then globally. And we are going to be producing these live events from campus to campus. And we hope, and our goal, and one of my responsibilities is to intrigue why to come in that day, to come into campus and get to the call center and get to manning your station and be happy at work. And from these celebrations, these different spaces, we're going to actually live stream all of the campuses at the same time so they can see what's going on in Phoenix versus in Texas, and then showcasing. We'll have headline performers. So we're trying to bring them in and get them excited, as opposed to say, I'll just stay home. We need to get them in.
That's a very important thing. And I think that going to the office is now an event, because if you're going to work remote, some of the time, when you go to the office, you have to actually have a reason to go and make it exciting and get that feeling that you talk about. And so, David, I want to really thank you for being on this. How can people get in touch with you and get onto some of these programs that you create?
Thank you, David. It's really easy. If you go to davidtutera.com, upper top menu bar, it shows the David Tutera mentorship and the David Tutera experience. Our next one, the experience, is in Jamaica this March, the 21st, 2nd, and 3rd. And it's going to be as epic as the past. And just check us out. Check out the different things we're doing. I'm not just doing events. I'm obviously trying to make things better for everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, David.
Thanks, David.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the GatherGeeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter at GatherGeeks or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of GatherGeeks. Until then, gather on.